Gonna talk about divorce today. Very timely. Apparently, the rate of divorces actually went up in like Wuhan when they lifted the like really strict quarantine orders on them. They had like this spate of divorces after that, and yeah, it's fair. So this is actually very timely, and I was not really thinking about it like that. I was thinking about cool innovations, and this just happened to work out really nicely. And it's never too late, actually. I've never heard of anyone doing one of these things after the fact, but I think you could. You could easily just do it, actually. I mean, it's a document. You sign it, and you're good. So, I'm live. Hooray! Jennifer says I'm live. And if Jennifer says I'm live, I must be live. Even though I don't see myself live on the Facebook. But I'll just have to take your word for it. Just dithering to myself right now about divorces, which is timely because of what I'm talking about today, which is divorce. Okay, well, I assume it'll come up at some point. I want it to be live on my page, you know what I mean? All right. It's okay. Let's talk about some stuff. I'm so excited. I like that one. So, whatever, it's not on here. Welcome to the third of the 3 parts of Can You Do That? Which is my little foray into things that you might think you couldn't do Jewishly, but actually, if you know your halacha, you wrangle around and play with it a little bit, there's some really cool things you can do Jewishly, like, just to cover the past couple weeks, you can use electricity, depending on how you want to interpret your halacha. Apologies if you hear my child crying. He's out there somewhere with his dad. He's fine. What else can you do Jewishly? You can use your electricity on Shabbat. You can drive your electric car on Shabbat. You can eat in non-hechshered restaurants. You can eat food that doesn't have a hechsher on it, and it's still kosher. Fun stuff. And today we're going to talk. We're going to talk about marriage, and specifically the end of marriage. But it's actually not a bad thing. It's a good thing that we're going to talk about today. Super fascinating if you are not married, but maybe you want to be, maybe you are married and this is something that you're thinking about, or it's actually not something you've never thought about, but you should. And maybe you're not married and you don't care about any of that, but you just like learning some little halachic nitty gritty because, oh boy, do I have stuff for you. So please join me as we walk down the road of marriage that brings us together today. We're really not live on Facebook? I'm not seeing it. All right. So, because I have to give this little caveat, disclaimer, one more time for the folks in the back, I am not the Maradatra of Beth Yeshurun. I'm not the Maradatra of anybody in Houston that I'm aware. And I'm not Paskaling Halacha. I'm not doing Psak Halacha. Those are both horrible ways of kind of just trying to wrangle Hebrew and English together. And the point is, if you know what that means, then that means something to you. And if you don't know what any of that means, then it doesn't really matter. That being said, also like with kashrut, that was important to kind of like give a little disclaimer, like I'm not making halachic rules, and with electricity and Shabbat, important to do that disclaimer. But for this, actually, this is something I really do kind of deal with folks because I do weddings and I have feelings about this thing that we're going to talk about. And I think it's important. And I'm assuming there's some kind of problem. Jennifer, I promise you're on. All right. I trust you, Jennifer, more than I trust myself. So let's talk marriage. No, specifically, let's talk weddings. Now, what does the Torah say about weddings? Well, it says nothing. It says nothing. It says people get married. Yes, it does say people are married. It doesn't say like how you get married. Like, what do you have to do? It doesn't say specifically God said, in order to marry a person, you have to do blah, blah, blah. What did it say? Nothing. Well, it does have this one line, though. This is a fun line. All my notes are right here because this is a very halachically detailed one. This is a quicker session than we've done in the past. And again, if you have questions, Facebook Messenger is probably the easiest for me right now, and texting, and I will try to do the Facebook comments. If I don't get to the comments during this, I will answer them after. We have a meeting right after this, so we have to get through this stuff. So there is a line in Deuteronomy, so we're already talking end of the Torah, 24:1. That says, Ki yakar ish isha uva'ala. A man takes a woman and It's hard to translate that word Baal. So in Hebrew, Baal means husband. But that's not what a Baal is. Baal was a Canaanite god. And so it's kind of used in, you see this in Tanakh, you see it in Torah, you also see it in the Nevi'im, the works of the prophets. Baal is being this Canaanite god. It's referred to kind of really disparagingly, like, the Baal. They worship Baal. They worship, this pagan god. So Baal in Hebrew somehow became the word for husband, in the sense that your husband is like your god if you're a woman. So there's a lot of layers to that we're not really going to get into particularly. But the point is, the line, in Devarim, ki yikar ish isha uva'ala, a man takes a wife and husbands her, possesses her. That's how it's usually translated. He possesses her, he becomes her husband. That's not the whole line, though. In Deuteronomy, which is talking about marriage, but more specifically, is talking about divorce. Ki yakar ish isha uva'ala, a man takes a wife and possesses her. V'haya im lo timsa chen be'enav. And it happens that she is not pleasing in his eyes. That's how it's really translated more directly. Ki matzava ervatavar, because he found something obnoxious in her. He didn't like her. He married her, and he's like, this woman, So, what does this line in the Torah tell us happens next? Uchatavla sefer kritut. He writes her a divorce decree, which is now known as a get. V'natan beyada, and he puts it in her hand. He gives it to her hand. V'shilcha mibeta, and he sends her away from his house. So the Torah doesn't say anything at all about how you get married directly, but it does say how you get divorced, which is kind of amusing. It says that a man finds something he doesn't like about a woman, and so he writes a divorce decree. He hands it to her, puts it in her hand. She has it in her hand, and he boots her. So that's what the Torah says happens if you're married and you don't want to be married anymore. Cool. So, just checking, really want to put that on my own page. In doing this, however, the Torah is actually telling us about how you get married, not just how you get divorced. Because look at the wedding ceremony. This is really where we got the basis. The basis, there's a lot more that's been built on top of this, but the basis of our idea of how you get married comes from the line in the Torah about how you get divorced, namely in a wedding ceremony. And if you've been married before, you just think back, maybe it's been a while, that a man says to the woman, this is the one line at all that anyone who's not the officiant says during the ceremony, says, behold, you are betrothed to me, you woman are betrothed to me, man, by this ring, tabat, according to the laws of Moses and Israel. That's the line. That's Jewish vows. We don't really do vows. Like, you can write your own vows, and that's very nice, but that's our vow. That's our, do you take this woman to be, or blah, 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 blah. That's the line. Harei admet kadesh et li. Man says to woman, behold, you are betrothed to me. I'm ba'aling you. I'm possessing you. Now, classically, also orthodoxly, the woman doesn't say anything back. Like, there's no line that a woman classically would say back. The woman puts out her finger and takes that ring. Remember, to ba'adzo, according to this ring, you're married to me. Ring goes on finger. The woman puts out her finger, ring goes on it, boom. Now she has agreed to be married. Not by saying anything, but by having her finger. Boom, ring goes on. And the woman doesn't say anything back because classics thinking being that, marriage is a man taking possession of a woman. I'm just quoting the old Imesity text here, which is the basis for our religion and the specific aspect of religion in general. When you buy a TV, you buy a TV. It doesn't agree to be bought by you. You just buy it. Just saying. So, cool. We can get into the more egalitarian points of view and what do women say, but I was at a wedding where it was Orthodox and a woman said blah, 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 this line. It's never the same line. We're not going to get into that. That's not what we're talking about right now, though it is very fascinating. Point is, man says, I don't want to be married to you. He gives her a divorce decree. And as we know, the man wants to marry her. He says, you're mine now. And she goes, okay. And so good. Basics that we're working off of right now. We did that in like 12 minutes. I'm glad. Let's say, it doesn't work out. Judaism is not a till death do us part religion. We're not. Better a good divorce than a bad marriage. We are not like, this is forever marriage. We want you to be married, forever. And they say that, the angels cry when there's a divorce, and it's good to be married. I think people should, Judaism classically teaches people should be married and they should stay married. But if you can't stay married, don't stay married. We're very pragmatic people. Then, in ancient times, as now in modern times, how do you end a marriage Jewishly? Well, a husband has to write, but in all honesty, he has someone else write for him, a get, a Jewish divorce decree. And a woman has to accept it. Sound familiar? It should, because that's how the wedding worked. What if, God forbid, a woman will not or cannot accept the divorce decree? Is he stuck? No. Our ancient rabbis would never allow a man to be stuck in a marriage he didn't want to be stuck into. Yeah, it'd be terrible. God forbid, man can just do whatever he wanted when he wanted to. But to be very serious for a second, there are cases where a woman could not accept a divorce that are not about, like she just doesn't want to be divorced, et cetera, et cetera. Like what if a woman, God forbid, goes missing? She couldn't accept a divorce decree. And Jewish law, just like secular law, you have to be present to consent to something, or consent to a divorce in this case. What if a woman loses her mental faculties or is in a coma or something? You can't be unconscious and consent to any kind of legal thing Jewishly, and I'm pretty sure also civilly. Like you have to actually give consent. A woman has to be able to consent to these things. And if she can't, then you can't, as a man, get divorced. Also, all of these terms are everything's heteronormative in classic Jewish law. Though, if we want to talk about non-hetero, that's also super fascinating. And we can, if you'd like to. So, a man wants to get remarried. And since Rabbeinu Gershom, we have not been doing polygamy. It still exists in very, very small pockets of Jewish society. Very, very rare, and it's only gotten extremely more rare. Anyway, so a man wants to get remarried. He has to get divorced from his wife. She cannot or will not accept a divorce decree, so he can't divorce her because she won't agree to be divorced. What is a man going to do? What did the rabbis do? Couldn't they just wring our hands? No. The rabbis have something very clever. It's called heter me'av rabbanim, which means the permission of 100 rabbis. Basically, if you're a man and you want to get divorced, and you've got that divorce decree and you gave it to your wife, but she just won't accept the dang thing, or, she's missing, God forbid, or she is in a coma, God forbid, all these things, she mentally does not have her full faculties. How do you get divorced? How do you get remarried and keep living your life? Well, heter me'av rabbanim is 100 rabbis. So if 100 rabbis say it's okay, then you have 100 rabbis' permission, which can kind of overturn your wife's refusal or inability to accept a divorce decree. Also often is the case if you're a man, you want to get divorced, you can't get divorced because your wife is, medically she couldn't consent. Usually they will grant you that, the heter me'av rabbanim, the permission of 100 rabbis, they'll grant it to you under the condition that you will continue to provide for her and support her financially, which I think is actually a nice way, because that way you can't just be like, oh, my wife is sick, she's on her own, I just want to get remarried. The rabbis are not going to let you just foist off your unwell wife on someone just because she can't consent to getting divorced. So that's actually kind of nice. What about the ladies? Well, it's a good question, actually. Corollary to the heter me'av rabbanim, when you have 100 rabbis say that a man can divorce his wife even though she won't accept a divorce from him. If a woman's husband won't divorce her and she wants to be divorced, the rabbis say, Nothing. They say nothing. They have nothing. In classic Jewish law, there isn't anything there. I guess it just ran out of creative juice when it came to the ladies. So a woman whose husband will not grant her a divorce, even if he's abandoned her, even if he's run off with another woman, even if he's not financially supporting her anymore and moved out of the house, even if, God forbid, he's gone missing, even if, God forbid, he's lost control of his mental faculties or is in some kind of a coma, can't or won't grant her a divorce. She's an aguna, which is a chained woman. And the problem of agunot, plural of aguna, is very serious. It's a very serious issue. Serious in kind of a couple different ways. One, you have a woman who is chained to a man who is missing, or, if in Jewish law, if no one sees you, if we don't find your body, we can't corroborate your death. No body, you're not dead, Jewishly. If someone doesn't see that you died, then there's no way of knowing because you might still be alive. So you can't, you can't be like, oh, he ran off. It's been 20 years. No one's heard from him. No, well, he could be somewhere. So she can't be divorced. So you have a woman who can't, restart her life, can't get remarried because we don't have polygamy. And even if we did, we only ever had polygamy. We never had polygyny. So we had men who could have multiple wives. We never had women who could have multiple husbands. Jewishly, halakhically, it never existed with us. And you have the fact that Jewishly, there's the idea of mamzerut, which, and I'm using these as a technical legal term, is bastardy. That I don't even know where it comes from. Maybe it's English law. Maybe it's some secular law, that the idea of a bastard is a person with unmarried parents. Judaism doesn't care if your parents are married. doesn't really matter to us. Doesn't affect anything about you. We have there are people in our own line, our ancient, matriarchs, patriarchs, whose parents weren't married. A bunch of the 12 tribes of Israel descended from Bilhah and Zilpah, who were never married, to Jacob. They just were concubines. So clearly we don't care if your parents are actually married. Mamzerut, bastardy, is a person who is, a bastard is a person whose parents were, it's either incest, or the woman was married to someone else. She was an Esha Ish. She was a woman who belonged to another man. So a woman who has a baby with a man who is not her husband has produced a bastard, and that doesn't go away. And mamzerim, technically, according to Jewish law, can't marry other people. You can't marry people who are not also bastards. And it doesn't go away, like even after you, even if you are a bastard and you marry someone else, and then your children, it keeps perpetuating. In some cases, the sins of the father are visited on the children, so to speak. The sins of the mother, I guess, technically. So a woman who can't get divorced is a big problem. Huge problem. And this is a problem today, still. You've got the issue. It's more, I'd say, in Orthodox communities, where people are going to hold very strongly to the idea of having a get. And though, to be fair, if you came to me, if you came to any conservative rabbi, I don't know about other denominations, but in the conservative movement, if we are performing your wedding, we have to ask if you've been married to a Jew before, if you have a ketubah. And if you do, you have to have a get. And we can't do your wedding otherwise, because otherwise we're perpetuating bigamy, and that's not allowed. And polygamy and polygamy, we don't mess with any of that stuff. Not anymore. So it's an issue. And you see this, like in the news, and you see this if you've lived in these communities, or if you've been around in these kinds of communities, that this is an issue. Like there are men who will not grant their wives divorces, and it forces their wife to be an aguna, a chained woman. And they will not give her a divorce decree, even if they've abandoned her, even if they have not provided her for her financially, even if they've moved out, even if they've given her up. They won't grant her a divorce. And it's purposeful sometimes, because they want real estate. It's extortion, because they want money, because they want a percentage of her family's business, if her family has like a business empire of some sort. I've definitely seen that. Sometimes they want full custody. That's very often. They're like, yes, I will grant you a divorce. I'll let you move on with your life. but I want full custody of the kids. And it's ugly. It's ugly and it's terrible. There are also women whose husbands have gone missing. Ron Arad is a very famous example. He was an Israeli Air Force pilot who was flying over Lebanon to fight against the PLO, and his plane went down. He was captured by the Lebanese army. This was in 1986. And after, I want to say, sometime in the late 80s, I think they got some letters from him. And after that, nothing. And so his wife, I'm pretty sure she's still in Agunah, because no one saw him not alive. And there was no proof that he wasn't alive. So we had to assume that he was alive. And so Ron Arad's widow, despite him being gone for 30 years at this point, almost like, they actually declared in 2016, the government said, yes, he died in like 88, but I don't think, as far as I've heard, they actually have not granted her any kind of divorce, because it just halakhically, in the classical reading, the Orthodox reading, it doesn't exist. So that's an issue. So what can we do besides wring our hands? What do the rabbis do? Well, even the classical reading and the rabbis and the Orthodox, they do have ways of trying to compel men to give their wives divorces. They can pressure them. They say, you know, I've had friends who are in the Orthodox community, and sometimes there will be, there's a man who will not grant his wife a divorce, but he's definitely like essentially divorced her. He just won't give her the actual get, and they'll physically block his way into the shul. They'll block him from physically entering the synagogue, so he can't pray. Or they will say, don't do business with this man. He won't give his wife a divorce. They are trying to pressure. They call him, send him letters. There is, every once in a while, there's a case, like I think this is a couple of years ago, it's probably New York. And it's like a ring of men who were using like electric cattle prods to convince men to give their wives divorces, whom they'd already abandoned and were definitely, you know, living as if they were divorced from them, but simply wouldn't give them a get. And so these men would use like electric cattle prods to convince those men to give their wives a divorce. And they got, you know, obviously caught by the government, like civil authorities were like, no, you can't use electric cattle prods on people, even in this particular case. So what else can we do? What else can you do? Well, you can issue a tanai. You can have a tanai, a condition. This is going to get a little bit technical, just to warn you. But we're going to get done pretty quick. Make sure there's no questions. Are there any questions? Am I missing anything on anybody? I don't want to miss any questions, because I know this gets very technical and it's a little bit difficult. I get it. Oh, someone else is trying to say, hey, this is happening right now. Hooray. You know what? I can share it on my happening right now. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. This is going to get tough. Okay. You can have a tanai, a conditional document. Now, this isn't something that I'm thinking of like, oh, she's just this woman, rabbi, rebel. No, I mean, probably, but like not in this particular case. And it's not like this newfangled thing, and it's not a conservative movement thing even, really. I mean, we've formalized some parts of it and we've integrated it as a movement-wide thing that exists, but it's based on something that is very, very old. And by very, very old, I mean like the Talmud. You know, the Talmud talks about this, and the medieval commentators pick up on it and talk about it. So here's how we get our condition. The Talmud, and I looked all over for which sugya exactly. I couldn't find the Masechta, but I'm pretty sure it's Gittin, obviously. Gittin being the plural of get. But the rabbis talk about David. David, very famous, Bathsheba. You know, so David's on the rooftop and he sees Bathsheba bathing, and he's like, oh, I gotta have her. But she's married. Oh, what am I gonna do? So he sends her husband off to battle. And the rabbis are like, well, that's horrible, because then, you know, like they say he got killed, but like, what if, well, you know, she was still Esherish. She was a married woman. So he had sex with a married woman. Oh my goodness. That's not allowed. That's Jewishly illegal. This is a horrible, horrible thing. And then the rabbis determined this. They said that she wasn't married because her husband, as all soldiers did at the time, apparently they knew this, he gave his wife, as was the way of soldiers, a conditional get, a conditional divorce decree, which sounds a little weird, but it's not. And let me explain. They said, remember them, old ancient dudes, not me, that in this divorce decree you give your wife, it says, on the condition that I don't come back from battle. And people know that I died in the battle because it was a big, crazy battle and people were dying left and right. But I don't come back, and it's been a while, and you know I'm not coming back. Then our marriage is as if it never happened. And they say that he gave his wife this, as all soldiers would do, to protect their wives, protect them from having to be agunot, from being chained women, because in the craziness of battle, maybe no one actually saw the soldier die, but he was dead. And now his wife, she's going to have to like live possibly with children and no way to support them, and no other man could marry her because she was already married. Nope. She'd have a conditional divorce decree. That, God forbid, her husband wouldn't come back from war. She'd be like, here is my conditional get, which actually means I was never married in the first place. That's the rabbis in the Talmud saying something that they are actually putting, they're kind of like looking backwards and saying that's what they were doing back then, because really they just wanted to save David from being an adulterer, because that was, I mean, it's one of the biggest sins you can commit in Judaism is adultery, which is having sex with a married woman or being a married woman who has sex with someone who's not your husband. It's like huge. Doesn't go the other way, by the way. But that's not here or there currently. So we know that's true. Okay, great. So that's kind of the basis here. Then you've got our medievals. We've got Rashi specifically, who comes in and says, well, also, let's take all that, let's kind of ratchet it up a notch. Rashi says, that line, you know that line you say when you get married, Hare at mekudeshet li b'taba adzo kedat Moshe Yisrael, behold, you are betrothed to me in accordance with laws of Moses and Israel by this ring. So Rashi says, well, anyone who marries a woman on using this vow, and that is the vow you use when you get married. You know that marriage is not something that comes from the Torah. It comes Kadat Moshe Yisrael. You're being married according to the laws of Moses and Israel. So everybody who gets married knows that they're being married according to laws that exist from people, from the rabbis, from the sages, and people who came before them. So you know that when you do it. So if a marriage can be enacted on the basis of the laws of Moses and Israel, that also means that it can be invalidated according to the laws of Moses and Israel. That's not me. That's not Sarah, this crazy, conservative seminary, a Los Angeles educated woman rabbi. That's Rashi. So if you are mad about that, you can be mad at Rashi and not at me. Basically, every marriage is done Kadat Moshe Yisrael. Every marriage, Jewishly, is done according to the laws of Moses and Israel, which means we human beings have the power. We clearly have the power. Remember, we're building a case here. We clearly have the power. And so you don't even, in that case, you wouldn't even need a get if you did something according to the laws of Moses and Israel. There's room to say that new legal structures can evolve and be enacted and be practices that we institute regarding marriage and divorce. And that this is something that doesn't exist even just in the times of the Gemara and the times of the Talmud. It can keep going even till now, because Rashi doesn't distinguish between it was before and it was after, and maybe it has to be before you're engaged, or maybe it has to be before you're married. No, not even that. So there could be some kind of a conditional statement, document, a tanai that you could sign before. I recommend before. But even if you didn't, it could be done after. And that is how we get, we're at 12:30, I'm so proud. And that's how we get Hafka'at Kiddushin. And as a note to Jennifer, who might be watching and moderating, I can't find this on Facebook Live on my phone, so if there are any things going on Facebook Live, like questions, please just text them to me. Thanks. This is how we get Hafka'at Kiddushin. This is how we can say, okay, clearly we know that marriage Jewishly is done according to the laws of Moses in Israel. And clearly we know that there are conditional gets, English, Hebrew, not playing well together, that exist Jewishly. And this is an old practice. So with the conservative movement done, there are a little more legal wranglings in there. I'm giving you the very basics of all of this. So what the conservative movement has done, which I think is absolutely extraordinary, probably up there with how we managed to also do like same-sex marriage, same-sex voting, getting also like just really, really cool, innovative halacha. I'm also into the electricity stuff too, but this is some of my favorite, because electricity like is great, it's nice, but I have lived years of my life of Shabbat with no electricity, and I've lived years of my life not eating at not texture, non-kosher establishments. Like I've figured out that part of my life, but this is something that can affect people's lives. Because again, if you don't have a get from a previous relationship, I can't perform your wedding. And no rabbi who holds to halacha can perform your wedding. So this affects your life. This affects people's lives, which I'm so excited about it. It's like a piece of paper. And you can they have a very pretty one. I used to actually have to like write my own and have couples sign it, but now they have a really pretty one from the Rabbinical Assembly. Highly recommend it. It's great. You can type in the information, which is really cool. And it is kind of a replacement for the Lieberman Clause. The Lieberman Clause is a thing that used to exist. It still exists. If you need a ketubah for you're getting married, and you go to like ketubot.com, which is a legitimate website, and you're like, I want a conservative ketubah, and they'll be like, conservative with Lieberman, and you're like, what's a Lieberman? Lieberman is this clause which says basically, if you want to get divorced, the man won't give the woman a divorce, then you have to go in front of a Beit Din, and for I don't even know, because it's so silly. Some amount of time passes, and he gets fined a certain amount of money for not, if he's getting divorced, he got a secular divorce already. Clearly he wants to be divorced from this woman, but he won't give her a get. Then he gets fined a certain amount of money. Oh, wow, that sounds so scary. That sounds so terrible. Oh, except it's completely legally unenforceable. It's silly. And it doesn't work. It's literally been tried in court. I'm not just saying this because like the idea doesn't work, which it doesn't. It literally doesn't work because someone tried to do it in court. They're like, oh yeah, like divorce. Guy gave me a civil divorce, but he wouldn't give me a Jewish divorce. Now I can't get remarried. But according to this thing we signed, see secular courts. And the secular court said, yeah, that's not our thing, but like good luck to you. So the Lieberman Clause doesn't work. Sorry. But thank God, literally, that the conservative movement, very smart, intelligently, moved on from that. And we have this new thing. Oh, comments and no questions. Yay. We have this new thing that you can have written. Now, it doesn't exist on ketubah.com. So if you aren't married yet and you're looking to have a ketubah and you want this written in the ketubah itself, you're going to have to get it separately. That's not difficult. You could probably do it yourself. Failing that, email me. Email like any conservative rabbi. We can easily help you with this. And if you want the language in there, you're going to have a custom ketubah. Sorry. And the new thing that we have that is available by the Rabbinic Assembly and the USCJ, and I don't know what other acronyms exist for us, but basically says that if you separate with the intention of divorcing, or you give each other a civil divorce, if someone divorces someone else, and you could say the language either way, you could keep it in like the kind of classical halachic, Jewish thinking of like if a man grants a woman a divorce, because remember, Jewishly, classically, it only goes one direction. Man gives, woman accepts, marriage and divorce. You can do the egalitarian way where it has to go both ways, and it can go either way. That's something else, different lecture. We're not doing that here right now because timing. And it's super long and involved and interesting, but long and involved. So you can either say if one person gives the other a get, or you can say like if the man gives a woman a get, doesn't matter. Like if a man gives a woman a divorce, or someone divorces somebody else, basically if you are civilly divorced, or if you've separated for like 6 months and you're separated, like you're getting divorced. And if no one has given each other a get, or if the man hasn't given the woman a get, then this ketubah, or that ketubah if you're having a separate piece of paper, is considered null and void from the beginning. This is huge. This is basically like the thing that they say that, Bathsheba's husband gave her when he went off to battle, saying, like, if I'm not going to come back, or basically it didn't count. Same concept. You're saying that if you get divorced civilly, and you don't give each other, like the man doesn't give the woman a get, which we do encourage. That's the preference, is that there is a get that is given and received. But if not, or if someone is unable to give or receive a get, then your ketubah was never valid. It was null and void from the very beginning. This means that you don't need a get, actually. It means that your ketubah was just a really pretty piece of artwork for your wall. And it never did anything. And it doesn't affect any children that might have been produced from the marriage, because remember, Jewishly, we don't care if your parents are married. That's not what a bastard is. It means that you have two single people, and that you always actually had two single people, and that's okay. Again, we would always prefer that you are Jewishly divorced. It's always better to have a get and to go through that. Halachically, we prefer that. But if you can't, or if someone else, the other person in the marriage, just will not give a get or accept a get, then it's great to have this shtar, this little document, a tanai, this condition written in, either one, written in or a separate piece of paper, can be either direction. If you're already married, obviously it would have to be a separate piece of paper. It has to be signed by witnesses. That's how we do things, Jewishly and civilly. It's great to have this piece of paper because it protects people in the marriage from being chained to somebody, either out of malice or out of just horrible circumstance. Someone goes missing, someone dies, someone loses control of their mental faculties or just unable to communicate anymore. It's a great protection. It's very innovative. Do people have problems with it? Yes. There's a few problems other people have with it. I don't find them to be particularly compelling, and certainly not compelling enough to get rid of or not to encourage couples to have this separate document or worked into your ketubah. Either way, I encourage every couple I've ever worked with who are getting married to have this. And if they don't like the idea of having kind of like divorce language in their ketubah, I say that's totally fine. Let's print out this handy dandy little piece of paper from the RA website. Boom, done. And no one's turned me down yet. I have it myself. It's important. It's just like a little protection. And it means that you're not going to have to worry down the line. I would say, God forbid we should ever have to see this piece of paper again, if it's like a separate piece of paper. God forbid we ever have to look at this again. But if we do, we're going to be very, very glad we have it. And it saves the trouble of having to go through either a very difficult process or an impossible process. If you're a man, it could be very difficult, heter mea rabbanim, or impossible if you're a woman. There isn't anything. It is brilliant. It's halachic. It's wrangle, tilt your head and squint real hard and tease these little pieces of text apart, and I love it. And that is how Jew can do it. Jew too can have, God forbid you ever need, hafkaat kiddushin. It exists. In conservative law, we can help you out with it if you're already married. We can also help you out with that, to have that paperwork. And that is the third of 3 sections on, no, good, nothing related to this. That's the third of the 3 sections of can you do that? So we walked through electricity on Shabbat and electric cars. We walked through eating food in non-hechshered restaurants. I'm sorry, that one is a very choppy video. So if you got turned off by the choppiness, we can talk about it separately. And we have the third of the 3 parts, which is about hafkaat kiddushin and the separate tanai, the conditions that you can eliminate the problem of agunot, which is a real serious halachic issue. and is, I think, a really amazing innovation of our movement, building on the blocks that, as clearly I pointed out, go back thousands of years. So thank you for joining me. It has been fun. I will look at all the comments later. If you have any questions or any other comments, please you can comment on the video and the link. You can email me. You can text me. You can Facebook message me. Anything you'd like to do to ask questions, comment, or harangue me in general. Looking forward to it. So thanks for sticking around with me. It's been so much fun to halachically nerd out with other folks. Have a good afternoon. Stay safe.